This video is the second part on building a generic looking structure. This part focuses on the sketch building process of the taller structure on the right. I start with building the roof. I'm using roof parts from Pikestuff kits, gluing the different parts together using the styrene strips that come with the kit. I don't want to use the roof trim from the kit, so I'm removing the end sections with a hobby knife and sand the ends flush with a file. When I have finished preparing the roof halves, I cut the ends of the buildings from evergreen board and batten styrene sheet using a 70 scale feet wide end wall from Pikestuff as template for the roof pitch and overall building height. After transferring the shape of the end wall to the styrene sheet, I score the sheet with a hobby knife using a steel ruler as a guide. I cut my end section 60 scale feet wide to make it fit the space I have available. I also make sure to get the roof pitch as close as possible on both end walls so the roof won't end up crooked. I'm planning to use styrene angles as trim, so I remove the batten closest to the building corners with a hobby knife and a small file. Then I start cutting the sidewalls from the styrene sheet using the same score and snap technique as before. Since the sheet is not wide enough for the intended dimensions of the building, I have to join another styrene section on edge with a bit of scrap styrene glued from the backside as reinforcement. The joint isn't quite perfect from the outside, so I use plastic putty to fill the gaps and sand it smooth. Then it's time to mock up the parts in order to decide where to put the various doors. I decided to place roll-up doors for forklifts about 3.5 centimeters, that's 1.5 inch or so, from the corners with a personnel door next to one of the roll-up doors. I mark the positions of the doors on the backside of the sidewall and start cutting through the styrene sheet. I cut the opening too small intentionally so I can test fit the doors and gradually increase the opening with a knife and later with a file in order to get a good fit. Then it's time to glue the wall sections together using magnetic clamps to get square joints. The building is fairly large, so I have cut a center support from plain 1mm, that's about 40,000ths of an inch, styrene to prevent roof sag. To further improve rigidity, I glue strips of styrene along the bottom and top sections of the walls. Then I glue styrene strips between the end walls and the center support to provide additional support for the roof and make the structure more rigid. Now it's time to add the corner trim. I noticed that the batten on the sidewalls interfere with the trim in some places, so I have to remove the batten and file the corners smooth before gluing the styrene angles in place. Then I measure the end walls and cut the roof sections to the appropriate width to create only a little bit of roof overhang and sand the cut edges smooth. While test fitting the roof sections, I noticed that the cut lines are very noticeable, so I glue additional styrene strips where possible from below and then fill all the cut lines with plastic putty. I also sand the underside of the roof section smooth so nothing can interfere with the fit when the roof is placed on the wall sections. I used the angle clamps as support to place the roof sections at the correct angle when gluing them. After this, I glue styrene strips along the roof edges to help with aligning the roof on the wall sections and providing additional stability to the structure in general. I glue styrene strips along the roof ridge and use plastic putty to fill the gap. I smooth out the putty with my finger as good as I can and then file the ridge smooth with a file after the putty has cured. For the gutters, I'm using 2mm styrene angles glued to the edge of the roof. My NMRA gauge is about 0.5mm thick and that seems like a good width for the gutters to me. I cut the styrene a little bit longer than the roof, so I don't need to be super precise when I glue the angled strips. Since I have only two hands, holding the styrene angle and the gauge in place and then handling the glue bottle is a bit of a challenge. So I put a little bit of the plastic cement in one corner of the roof and then place the angle using the NMRA gauge as reference. When the glue has set, I work my way along the roof edge in 2 or 3 sections. The styrene strips are very thin, so I wait an hour or so to make sure that the styrene is no longer soft before cutting the angles and filing them flush with the roof. I'm using 0.5mm styrene angles as trim for the roof ends. To allow room for the gutters, I remove about 2mm from the end. Then I cut the piece to the correct length and glue it in place. The pitch of the roof is shallow enough so I don't really need to file the pieces so they meet flush with each other at the roof ridge. I glue the pieces to the edge of the roof and then use a tiny amount of cement to fix the ends to the gutter. When that is done, all the parts of the two buildings are ready for painting and final assembly. But that's a story for another time.